underway. Today's general business item number 1 is the review of the revenues and expenditures and transfers and any accounts related to issues pertaining to the fiscal year 2026 to 2028 biannual budget. Number 1, assuming Mr. Shroud, are you going to kick us off, or?
I believe Michael will get us started here.
All right. Good morning, Michael. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I am good. All right.
Only good news.
So we have our recap memo for the upcoming budget year. As of March, the end of March of this year, the aquarium has recorded 4.4 million, or 75% of the budgeted ticket sales, membership, and e-tickets for the year. Through March is roughly 75% of the year, so we're right on target there. Staff estimates that we probably end the year about 6.1 million, which is about right on line or a little bit higher than what we budgeted for this year.
And that's a conservative estimate, knowing that we have cyclical nature of the revenue at the aquarium, and the slowest part of the year, the winter, we are through. And so even this estimate is conservative, knowing that we're going to have probably significant more than that with May and June.
Yes, that is correct. And when you dig into the revenues, there are certain revenues that, for example, education, that looks really low, but once you get past spring break, as I talk to staff, and they're like, oh, then it gets field trips, and you see a big bump in that. So there are certain parts of it, like Mr. Schott said, that are cyclical in nature and kind of more seasonal too. Under the expense category, personnel expense, we're providing a 6% base pay increase this year, which was the same as last year. Additionally, there are some merit pay raises for some key personnel that were requested. It's our desire to continue this type of percentage to make the aquarium competitive with other facilities and to find and hopefully retain exceptional employees. As such, the personnel expense budgeted for next year will increase to 4.533 million up from 4.36 million. It's a rate about 3.9%. I know we're given a base pay rate increase of 6%, but from when we look at total personnel expense, there's other factors in there like membership dues, trainings, certain other things like that, benefits that which don't change based off the increase in salary. So hence, it's not a one-to-one increase there. For maintenance operations, we're going to see an increase, a very minimal increase, pretty much holding the same. It'll increase to 3.56 million from 3.55 million. So, like I said, almost flat, a 0.3% increase.
Do you want questions as you're going, or do you want to save them to the end?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, on that one, when I read through it, I was just sitting here thinking about it. Generally, inflation is, pick your number,
Yeah.
somewhere in the 2 to 3% range, depending on what's going on with energy pricing. But this going up just 0.3%, was just curious, why wouldn't it have gone up more? Or are we not really baking that level of inflation into some of the cost structure?
And if I could answer, I think historically what we've talked about with some of our revenue and expenditure numbers, we try to be extremely conservative, both on what will be going out the door and then the revenue coming in. And we've had this conversation over the last 5 or 6 years, and this is Michael's first year with the budget. And so some of these items, like the maintenance and operations, instead of increasing like an anticipated 2, 3, 4% related to inflation, he's looking at a 3-year average of what we've budgeted versus what we have actually spent. And there has been a buffer that we've included. And so part of the reason that there's only a very basically no increase in M&O is because he's seen the buffer that exists, and we're holding that actual budget amount steady, still anticipating that the actual expenditures will increase, but still not close enough to the budgeted number that we need to increase that budgeted number. So we do anticipate the actual expenditures to increase more than that.
Okay, thank you.
For our capital outlay, we're seeing a decrease in this upcoming fiscal year. Most of that decrease being the fact that previous years we've had quite an outlay and capital outlay related to the new animal holding facility. And as that gets closer to completion, most of the bigger costs associated with that have already been expended in previous year and previous couple of years. And so there's a minimal amount. I think they had in there about 600,000 anticipated for finishing up that facility, as opposed to last year it was over $1 million. I think 2 years ago was, $5 million over $5 million we had budgeted for that. So that was the main reason for the decrease there. There's still some capital projects there.
And buried in here, what is the assumption of when the new building is complete?
In about a year to year and a half.
Okay. But we really, but we don't know enough about it necessarily to say we need to adjust costs one way or another. I would think a new building, it's better insulated. Probably we're going to have some energy savings there, but it's bigger. So, a lot of those things may offset cost-wise.
And that's a good point, and I think that support staff didn't anticipate this building being completed in this fiscal year. And we'll come back at the same time next year and probably be evaluating.
You'll have more information.
Yeah, the building will have been at least a shell, and we'll have those expenses known, and then we'll know where we are in terms of actually moving the animals over and potentially what that expense will be, and I think that'll be addressed next year at this
Okay.
time.
All right, thank you.
But we're is this working? Right now, we're doing really well as far as at this point on what we expected our expenses to be and what we have budgeted. So, we're even with the tariffs and everything, we're still, and we're pretty far along with expenditures. So I try to keep, several months ahead. Also, there's a lot of equipment that has long lead times. So, but they're big ticket items. And a big part of that has already been accounted for. So we're not just, as our expenditures do not reflect the work being done. It's way ahead to get these items. Also with the inflation, we don't want those, and a lot of our quotes are only good for a few weeks. So we're trying to acquire all this equipment. So it's pretty telling so far that we budgeted more than enough.
Yes. So moving on, there's a list of some of the requested capital items. Like I said, our large animal holding facility, but then a few other projects. New machine, some replacing lighting and truss in the sea turtle area. There's projects to tackle for this upcoming year.
Yeah, Kenny, what is that project for sea turtle lighting and truss replacement? What's going on there?
So the truss was not designed by us. The truss are, obviously, if everybody knows what they are, it's what you hang lights on, and it's the lights over the tank. And there was a couple factors. That truss has not survived well in that environment, especially since it's right over the water. And the way they designed it was pretty difficult to use. It wasn't smooth. I mean, herky-jerky, and it's just getting worse. So we had to replace that. Once again, we didn't design that, but we did tell them our needs. which is typical. So that's fallen on us. And then a lot of the lights, they have a life to them, but they have old technology, old chips. Lighting is one of those technologies that is moving pretty fast with the LEDs and everything. So we went ahead and replaced, considerable amount of that, the lighting. So, but aren't we done? Are we done? Where are we with that? Are we still acquiring?
We still have to do, we replaced the chips to get everything up and running now.
Okay.
It was dark, but we need to replace the.
We still haven't done the truss.
The winching system.
Okay,
is what is
yeah.
the big problem.
So that's still left. I knew we got some accomplished, yeah.
Okay. Moving into, we have more of the breakdown of the revenues and expenses for the past 2 fiscal years, including this fiscal year, and then budgeted for the upcoming year.
And if I could just interject, the overall strategy for this budget with the JAA and frankly the city and the JPWA is kind of holding the line in terms of operational expenses and operational revenues. The aquarium operating revenues have increased 90% from fiscal year 2016 to 2024. At the same time, operating expenses increased just over 44%. This was in large part due to increased visitor traffic, as well as ticket and membership pricing changes. The rise in gate and membership revenue was due largely to significant capital investments in new exhibits, as well as ancillary entertainment opportunities for visitors that extended the average stay. And when we talk about the ancillary revenue opportunities and educational opportunities, it's been pivotal in increasing operating revenue. Those items are the carousel, which generates $200,000 to $300,000 a year, the virtual reality simulator that generates about the same amount, the playground that does not directly generate revenue, but extends the stay for visitors. We remodeled the cafe. We went from a cafe that provided sandwiches and bags because they didn't have a full kitchen, and that generated $40,000 to $50,000 per year. We invested $50,000 to $75,000 to provide a full kitchen. Now it generates $100,000 to $125,000 a year. The visitor fish feeding program, we've for over a decade provided an opportunity for visitors to feed the turtles and the stingrays. 10 years ago, we had a part-time person who would sometimes cut up the food for the animals, but it wasn't a dedicated everyday event. And so that revenue 10 years ago was $100,000 to $125,000 a year. It's gone over $300,000 a year within the last couple years. So all of these ancillary opportunities that we provide visitors, whether it's educational or entertainment, has really driven a significant increase in revenue.
Plus contracts that we've.
And we renegotiated the gift shop contract, so where we were receiving something like $125,000 to $180,000 now, that's more like $250,000 to $300,000. So the capital investments in existing exhibits and the ancillary education and entertainment opportunities for visitors, those have not created a demand for significant staffing, while at the same time driving a significant increase in operating revenue. And so in fiscal year 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and this fiscal year, we have included a $500,000 fund balance transfer from Fund 59. Fund 59 is funded through a 25% markup on industrial water sales, and the whole purpose of that 25% markup when it was created was to shore up the aquarium expenses when the Vision 2025 program came to an end. And so the Vision 2025 program was originally approved in 2002. It provided $12 million to the aquarium over a course of 13 years. So for 13 years, $923,000 of taxpayer dollars went to pay the debt of the aquarium, which is about $1.2 million a year. In 2016, that ended. And so city leadership prior to me negotiated with a power plant that wanted to come to Jenks, and they agreed to pay a 25% markup on the water they purchase from the city, which we purchased from Tulsa. And so that 25% markup generates about $800,000 to $1.2 million a year, depending on the power plant's power generation. And so we've budgeted this $500,000 amount, and we included it this year. I know we had the conversation last year about, do we need to continue providing this transfer even though it has not been used? And I think another important point to make is that coming out of 2020, the idea of the aquarium and the fund balances that we hold at the aquarium and the city and the JPWA, we have significant cash on hand, because sometimes our revenue doesn't meet the expectation that we would need in order to borrow money to finance some of our capital projects. And so having more cash on hand, even if our revenue is slightly lower, helps us borrow that money at a good rate. But we had about $4 million in fund balance prior to COVID. Coming out of COVID in 2020, we had $2 million in the bank. Since then, because of the aquarium staff and the strategic moves that they have made, both in investing in the exhibits and adding ancillary revenue, we went from $2 million in fund balance to in 2020 to $13 million is what we're projecting we will have at the end of 2026. And so I think that goes to show that the aquarium and the aquarium staff have really done an amazing job at getting people through the door. We had a huge surge in revenue and attendance coming out of COVID. In 2023, I think we peaked at over $9 million in revenue. In 24, I believe it was, or 25, it was 8.9 million, and we're, I think, going to come in close to 8.9 million this year. And so all of that increase in revenue while also holding expenses at half of the increase in the actual revenue. These folks at the aquarium, the staff, have done just, really worked their tails off to make an incredible experience for the people that walk through the door. And it's a facility that we have not done an economic impact study, which I think would be worthwhile, because getting 400,000 people to go to that facility and knowing that 60% of the people that walk through the door drive from further than 50 miles away to visit the facility is incredible. And so the city of Jenks is really blessed to have this facility within our boundaries. So,
Did you, the projected balance would be just somewhere near 13 million?
mhm.
And for the average person that pays attention, is this fund, would you call it a reserve? Would you call it a savings account? Does it earn interest? What do most people need to know that?
It earns interest, and it is a savings account, and we have it. We've never had an amount this much, but because we've done so well over the last 3 to 4 years, it has increased exponentially, and we're finishing up the research and development facility, the new quarantine building, and I think it's the task for Kenny and his team is to be thinking about in the next 2 to 3 years, how do we redeploy that capital back into the aquarium with new exhibits? And I think Kenny and his staff are working on that. But it really is just, I bring this up because it's an incredible story going from the opening of the aquarium and the revenue really being $3.9 to $4.2 million per year for something like 13 to 15 years. And really what has happened is the new exhibits and the ancillary entertainment options provided to visitors has just compounded on itself, and we've seen an incredible financial turnaround in the last 5 years.
Other than redeploying that money to new exhibits, does it make any sense to drive down debt?
The debt that we have right now, when we refinanced in 2020, you will not, I mean, it's a 2% interest rate. And so the
So
debt
I
that we
guess the
have
question
is
for
the best debt that you could possibly imagine having.
Inflation
Yeah,
is driving that.
we get more in CDs.
This question was
On
specific.
balance.
Yeah.
I wanted you guys to roll with this,
Yeah.
but never mind. So, I know the answer to the question.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So we have very good debt, so it doesn't make sense to, it's smarter to leave that money there and
Yeah.
deploy it into something that produces revenue and growth as opposed to paying down good debt.
And
Well,
reinvest it
And
in
it's
the
always,
area.
it's always a balance, because, you know, you have to, it's also our insurance for the next economic downturn.
Sure.
Or, you know, heaven forbid, the next COVID type event.
Or new competition.
You know,
Yeah.
or new competition. I mean, it gives us flexibility that we didn't have 5, 6 years ago.
Plus,
You
the
just
debt
do.
is worth less and less as inflation goes up. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
and so,
know.
and the debt service has stayed the same. So in 2002, 2003, the debt payment was 1.1, 1.2 million. It has been refinanced numerous times. The last time refinanced at a rate of 2%, and the payment is still 1.1, 1.2 million dollars. And so that 1.1, 1.2 million dollars is significantly less due to inflation today than it was in 2002, 2003. And I think that not only reinvesting in the facility, but investing in the employees that have made this happen is important.
Thank you.
Actually, kind of following on to that, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Mayor. So on account 611, debt servicing, that's P and I, both?
Yes.
And what is our outstanding liability on that debt, do we know?
Well, can you rephrase that question?
Yeah, what, in other
Common-
words, what's
common language,
What
please.
is the outstanding balance on the
Thank
debt
you.
that we have?
Off the top of my head,
Yeah,
I
when
don't-
we issued it, it was 22.5 million, if I
Yeah.
remember right. And that was several years ago, so I know we've paid down some amount of principal,
Yeah.
but
The-
how much, I
30-year
don't know.
amortization, probably?
no.
20?
Yeah, it was a little over 20.
You mean you don't have an app on your phone that shows the
And,
debt
and so
balance?
the interest expense annually is about $500,000. So I think that's a pretty good deal to have, to get over $20 million and have an interest expense of $500,000
Yeah,
a year.
There's no question on that. That's good debt to be leveraged there. Again, most of the things in the revenue expenses, I'm used to looking at accrual. Do we have things that we're looking at for deferred maintenance that we look at on an annual basis?
Well, certainly the roof
Yes.
has been
The topic.
yeah, we have been exploring that for years, and whether it's a full-scale replacement or strategic replacement, we anticipate that to be minimum 500 to potentially 2 to maybe 3, depending on the scale of the replacement. But I think we're well-positioned to absorb that, whether I wouldn't recommend absorbing it cash-wise, or absorbing it through some sort of cash and debt. But yeah,
Do we set up an accrual for that, or we just, an off-book item of what we're cutting?
It's off book. We know we have it, but
And it's going to be in stages over a period of several years, so it's not one lump sum. And the ODWC building that we're working on right now is going to need roof repair and stuff, and so we're going to see some real numbers with that too, to kind of give us a pretty good idea.
But it's not considered critical. You don't have any critical failures in it.
Well, there's a few areas, but they're smaller, and they're shingled areas. Some of it is that the water leaks do have an impact on our, on our facility as far as, doing damage or maintenance. We're getting water spots on the ceiling tiles, but the vast majority of our facility, since it's basically steel and concrete, and we identify those leaks and we've remediated them with other means, they still leak, but the water doesn't go directly on the floor on a lot of the areas, and it's not really doing any visible damage to speak of. So we're going to prioritize the Great Hall is one area because of the amount of sheetrock that's in there. But it is going to be an ongoing thing where we do stages.
But again, I think we're well-positioned.
Yeah.
And for context, the city of Tulsa and the Tulsa Zoo, the city of Tulsa subsidizes the operations of the zoo $6.5 million per year.
Our budget.
And in this case, the aquarium has not received a direct cash subsidy from the city of Jenks since 2020, which is really unbelievable.
Yeah, it is.
Last question I have is insurance. Are we self-insured?
No.
I'm not seeing a line item for that.
There wouldn't be a line item, so the expenses, when you see this sheet,
Have we even started expenses yet? No, we haven't.
no, but.
Can we,
Yeah,
Michael, are you done with revenues? Any other questions
Any
on
other questions on
revenues?
revenues? Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I did have some questions
Okay,
about
let's
revenues.
get through revenues and then we'll jump to.
Just generically, there were several I looked at that felt like we were being a little optimistic in the forecast based on actuals and what, both actuals from 24, 25 and actuals so far this year. The VR simulator, the event sales and the event catering, if you just do some simplistic linear regression of what would it be if you added another quarter and that quarter was like the other three,
Oh, yeah.
it looks like we're being overly optimistic. And the largest one of those is the VR simulator. So my only suggestion is you might want to take a look at that.
You suggesting the budget is too high at the 245?
No, I'm suggesting that those three items, the simplistic way, I'll just go to the VR simulator. Okay, we made 206,000 in the last actual year. So far this year, it's 126. Well, if the next quarter was like the other three quarters, that'd be 168, which is 100,000 less than what we show in this forecast. I know that we get more people in the summer and all that, but I don't know it's going to be basically
Make that difference up.
2/3.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that one in particular felt a little high, but,
we can change it.
well, it's just, I'm saying, look at it
Oh.
and think about, is that really reflective? Because then it starts kind of, it shows up in those out years as, that would be high too. On the flip side, if I look at e-tickets, I think we're being too conservative on the number. I mean, we're already at 555,000 through three quarters. So it seems like to me we will go well over 600 most likely, and, so that 650 for that plan year just maybe feels a little light.
Yeah, so looking at all the revenue, I not only looked at last fiscal year, I actually looked at the last 3 full fiscal years.
Right.
Kind of took an average, but also kind of looked at, because I have it highlighted on my little sheet that help me with if it's trending down, like the VR simulator is definitely trending down. We were at like almost 300,000 and
Yeah.
3 years ago, and it's trended down. And so part of me was like, how much do I trend it down? Other on the e-tickets is how much do I trend up to, and especially getting through the end of this year, trying to predict also too and see, okay, is it,
Right.
still trending down that
My
much?
gut tells me with the price of everything going up, getting through the door seems to still be happening fine. My guess is some of these ancillary
yeah.
things, we may start seeing lower spending because of that. It's like, I paid my ticket to get in, but boy, I just don't know if maybe you can only ride the carousel once. I'm not gonna let you ride it twice, kind of thing. So I think that's something really to keep an eye on. And one that really confused me was state sales tax marketing, because the last full year, we had 313,000. So far, we're at 181, which if it's, again, quick linear, would be 240. And we're saying 287, but we're also saying that our revenues are gonna either, our people in the door are gonna either stay flat or go up a little. I'm not quite sure I understood why that came down so much and is staying down.
I can,
Okay, thank you.
we came to a realization that the money in there was growing faster than we realized, and we just weren't spending it. And so we went on a campaign in my direction to get that money. That money doesn't do us a whole lot of good if we're
Right.
not using it for outside advertising.
Yeah, because it's a very specific
Right.
use limit to that
So we-
pile of money.
Right, so we increased our expenditures considerably, reaching out, billboards, expensive items, things that were, that we wouldn't even think of doing before this whole tax thing. So we were kind of still in that mindset of saving money. And that pool of money that we can only use for that was just, in my opinion, was getting too high. The purpose wasn't to see how high it would get. The purpose is to use it.
So
But I think the question is the
So
revenue.
you would argue that 24-25 was a spend down
Yes,
of stuff
And-
that had accumulated to some extent.
right, that's correct.
Excuse me. How much do we get a year on that program, roughly?
250 to 3.
Okay, all right.
And it's not a reimbursement. I don't know off the top of my head if it's one.
I
that's a
think my
reimbursement or if
recollection
it's a
was
keep.
we basically, I think we spend the money and then file for it. Well,
We'd
we
have
collect
to-
the
I think you're
tax.
right. I think
We
that
collect
might
the
be right,
tax,
yeah.
we remit the tax, then we file for it and get the tax back.
Yeah, probably knowing the tax commission, they would make it complicated, stepwise.
Okay, well, okay, that makes sense. I guess it just means Kenny's way behind
Yeah.
spending money this
That would
year.
make a lot more sense.
So those are the only questions I had on revenue.
Okay.
I'm
And
also
last
keeping-
call, questions on revenue?
Well, I just wanted to add a few expenses on that out of state money. We also pulled the trigger on the Arvest Center, all that entrance area, also the airport where the baggage claim. We never had anything there before, and now we have a whole wall. And so, and our print. We've been doing a lot of that. So I just wanted to tack that on.
Okay.
For the.
But-
Partnering a lot with the Jenks Chamber, that's a big
Okay.
thing we're doing.
Well, based on year-to-date, Kenny, it looks like you're behind. You need to spend more money.
I can do that pretty well.
That was all I had on revenue.
No other questions in revenue? Okay. The only request I have for next year is that I'm looking over at the city manager and his tables are all in landscape. And mine are, I kind of wish these would have been
Wait, they
stretched.
printed it off.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
jealous
Oh, yeah.
of the fact that I can see his better than mine. Next year, let's go this way. Change the orientations, we can see better.
Yeah,
We're
and I'll
moving-
just tell you, I still prefer getting the detail behind the line item, which we used to do. I find that helpful because it answers some of the questions
Oh,
that I
yeah.
usually have.
And percentage of change.
Yeah.
Yeah, move on to expenses. All right, expenses. Well, we have to do the presentation.
Yeah, go ahead.
Start questions, or, go ahead.
And
Oh, no, I was gonna say,
Don't make
These
it,
changes are really minuscule. If you look at I know we don't have the percentage, but overall, we have $154,000 increase in expenses. The largest being the exhibits LLS in 913, which is largely due to the pay increase, the 6%. Everything else is 30, 18, 5, a decrease of 15, and decrease of 20, increase of $1,800 and $747 for volunteers. So
What kind of items do we have going in visitor services? Count 918.
I know all of our ticket group is involved in that one. You know, people manning the ticket booths out front and all that.
Okay.
line item 17 is, there's an explanation for it on the footnotes.
When I look at exhibits LLS, and again, I'll just do my simplistic, is assuming it's linear. And if I took our actuals, we'd be at about 2168 for the full year, which, you know, looks pretty much in line with actuals from the year before. But we're showing a forecast of 2.6 million, which I was scratching my head a little bit, going, can Kenny really spend that much more money?
I hope not.
You know, at a drop of a hat, when this is mainly personnel.
yeah, most of that is personnel. Like, yeah, there's a.
Yeah, but that's a $500,000 difference from, it just comparing actuals
Oh,
to
it's
the
a-
previous year.
Budget, yeah.
You know, that looked like it was in line, but then the budget number looked like that's a $500,000 more than if it was linear.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
And I'm just asking, am I missing something in there? It just felt odd.
is that,
Exhibits.
I'm talking about 913.
yeah, none of the shark project is on there, right?
Correct.
The Sharp project.
So there's a
The
$1
sharp
million
building.
gap there, right?
The research center.
Oh,
Well, and that's where when I spoke at the beginning of the meeting about buffer,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh.
it just seemed a little high.
Also, and this, I hate to go backwards, but one thing we missed on the revenue, and also it touches on that, is that we've received a lot of money from donors, thanks to Dr. Money and OAF, several $100,000. I think just Fishes of Oklahoma is at 300? Oh, $550,000 we already have, plus there's at least, what, another 100 or two? Another 150,
Yeah,
so we're at
and that doesn't
600.
show up in any of these numbers, by the
Yeah,
way.
but I mean, there's an offset, so that's even more so. And also, I mean, you can take that account into our revenue, so to speak, because that's money we didn't have, that we have now, and we're going to redo the entire Fishes of Oklahoma gallery, which adds to our attendance because it's a new addition that we're
okay.
not paying for.
when we say we, the JAA may or may not have. That could be with OAF.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is a lot of what he's talking about is not gonna be in these numbers because it's donations coming into the OAF. And then when he's ready to execute the project, then the OAF moves the money over to JAA.
And maybe next year, just you can put a little sub-note at the bottom if you want.
Especially if we.
OAF balances from funds that
Yeah, we've
potentially
got
have the ability to be transferred over
Right.
to JAA in the future.
But on the bright side, that should increase attendance, which
Yeah.
should increase revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we've got some that we know are in the pipeline, or those that are recurring that fund on a regular basis, it would be good to project that in. That way we'd have some better feel for where we're at.
Another item that I was scratching my head on was the visitor services line, where we spent $810,000 in the last actual full year. We're at 516. Again, if that's linear, that'd be 689. Did we move some, I'm wondering if maybe we moved some things around inside the details of the budget from one category to another. Because, that visitor services, again, my linear extrapolation of the 689, we're showing for a budget of, 300,000, well, 250,000 more in the budget for the next year. I know in the past, sometimes what's happened is we've transferred these two people into this department, and we did away with this department, and that department was over here. Is there some of that going on here also?
On that, I'm not sure if
Okay.
that's the case. Part of it could be too, going back to, as we discussed before, is when you're comparing budget to actual is,
Right.
I think each year they wanted to increase costs 3% or whatever, whether we actually budget that or not. I think over time, like Chris said earlier, building in a buffer and then seeing, because, kind of looking at it, budget this year, to last year, it's, and looking at that exact thing of the actual, it's like, okay, I think we could probably bring the budget down a little.
The one caution I would make after 30-plus years of corporate life where I was doing a budget every year, if you put cushions in every place, then it's really hard to be able to truly keep to what the real costs are. Yeah, just be a little careful with that. But again, that was, and I see this through several areas. I saw it but one key question is, how many open positions do we have? Or are we pretty much fully staffed right now?
We have just a few. We have one in exhibits, that's within the exhibits budget. And we have, what else do we have?
But getting back to visitor services, we've spent less on salary and wages, meaning we have less people in the booth. We've spent less on incentive pay because we haven't been, over the last 3 years, we've kind of plateaued. We have less overtime. We have less FICA. Some of these things related to physical bodies working, we've had less of that this year. Also, contractual services, we've spent less than last year in visitor services.
Just a curious question here, and I'd hate to go back to revenue as well. On our memberships, have we ever done any analysis on the demographic locations, or geographic, where our memberships are at as far as what the percentage is that we have in Jenks versus outside the area?
I think 3% of the people that come to the aquarium are from Jenks. So we have 400,000 people, visitors a year. Over 95% of them are from outside of Jenks.
Which is good, that's bringing in from the outside.
Yeah, and the average visit is, the average number of times a person who comes to the aquarium is about 1.1, 1.2 times a year. And that's why we've had such a focus on selling memberships is if we can get them to buy a membership, and we hope they come back as many times as they want, but knowing that they may not, but they're purchasing the ability to, which costs more. That's why, I mean, I think memberships have gone from 296,000 in 2016 to close to $1 million the last year.
Probably not necessarily a budgetary question, but more of an operational question. You go into the shallow end versus in the weeds. Have we ever thought about putting like a QR code in the utility billings to say you can join, do a membership?
Yes, we have. We have
And
them.
it's coming through JPWA, okay. And it
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Yeah, QR
You're
code.
asking, I'm sorry, I didn't understand your
Yeah, no,
question.
if we actually did a QR code to promote memberships.
Outside of the aquarium, you're saying?
To all of our Jenks residents and then amortize it out over the 12 months.
We do, we put
We're doing that?
information in the packets that go out to new residents.
Okay, and are we allowing the billing to come through their water bill?
No.
Have we considered that?
No.
But we can
just
look
have
into
it.
it.
That's not a bad idea.
We also are taking out it's called a hometown ad for Tulsa World, where there's going to be something that goes for 6 months to every new person buying a home in the Tulsa metro. And we can put QR codes in that whenever we want to push memberships that way.
Yeah, just did the math on it. If I look at our population, that's 2.6 million ballpark on revenue. If we had memberships for every resident, but anyway, just a thought.
Any other questions on expenses? Okay, all right, moving on. Got about 10 minutes. What else do we want to cover?
Well, the item that we discussed back in January and February was the retirement plan for the aquarium employees. And we talked about a defined benefit plan and investing in at least 10 years of service that would cost the organization $2 million, or investing in unlimited service, which would be close to $4 million. And I'm still recommending that we switch the retirement plan from the existing defined contribution, which is 6.8% provided by the organization, to a defined benefit, which would lower the amount that the organization contributes, but require the employee to contribute 5.25% of their pay to the program. And then obviously there would be a defined benefit for the employees. And as I look out at the room, the people that have been here, that have been responsible for the turnaround in the financial position of the aquarium, going from $2 million in fund balance in 2020 to $13 million at the end of this fiscal year, they're the ones responsible for it. They've been here over 10 years. And I think that they are worth the investment for the organization. Similarly, the JPWA has budgeted $500,000 since 2020 for paying for the aquarium debt. And because the employees have overperformed and there's not been a need for that $500,000, there's been, just in the last 6 years, $3 million that has been budgeted from that account for the aquarium that has not been used because the aquarium has done so well, and even within the last couple of years has run a $2 million surplus. So I think investing in the people in this room that have made this financial turnaround happen is more than worth it. And I think that it's fair to say that in the decade I've been here, I've been extremely conservative related to expenditures, trying to only invest in things that have a return. And clearly the people in this room and the other 60 or 70 people at the aquarium have, whatever we have provided them in terms of pay and benefits, they have returned exponentially. So to invest a one-time $2 million figure or more in the aquarium staff, I think we will get that back easily within 1 or 2 fiscal years.
What's your plan for putting that on our agenda for a vote?
We will need a separate resolution. So we did not include that because it's a one-time amount of money. We did not include that in the budget, but it would be, really, it can be the next time the JAA meets, that resolution can be discussed, but the resolution does need to be approved in order to start the program, and I think that would be the next logical step.
Do you remember the conversations being complete? Or did Todd still have a number of
I don't know.
concerns?
I've been playing some phone tag, so I
Okay,
don't
I
know.
don't want to get into those concerns here, but I would feel comfortable with having another informal conversation about,
If maybe we can present it in a way different than the way we first looked at it, because I remember the challenges that I had with it was, number one, is a huge capital outlay. And I'm in favor of rewarding good performance, which we clearly have. But it's a major capital outlay, which hits our reserves. And the second thing was, we're essentially double funding those that were already participating in our existing plan. And I just think there might be some different ways that we can approach that to where we're not double dipping. Maybe we could just revisit it, come up with some alternatives.
yeah,
$2 million is a lot.
It is, and we've had surpluses of over that in the last numerous fiscal years. So
And I think as an alternative, if we're concerned that we're losing staff, we're not rewarding them appropriately, we can always, in surplus years, increase the contribution amount that we're doing with our existing plan.
yeah, there's a lot of different options.
there's other options.
I think the thought of the stability, knowing that the core people at the facility have been here largely from the beginning, and without them, we would not be where we are, and we won't be where we are without them. And I think locking them in, knowing that we're committed, they're committed to staying here and working with us through the transition, which will be happening, I anticipate, in the next decade. This would provide that and the ability for there to be some sort of transition. That's something we really haven't talked about, is the executives and the people that make the aquarium what it is within the next decade to 15 years will be transitioning out, and whether they transition out before that to go make more money at a different facility somewhere else, or whether they can do that here and be working with the people that will replace them. I think it's important that they stay here and aid in that transition process.
And we do have the next several people that are the next line that are considerably younger than us, that have been here a long time, but their pay doesn't reflect their age as far as a career. So, and we have excellent staff that if we lost, we've got many years of experience just gone. And the exhibit team is definitely one of them. You're talking about people who, are saving the aquarium millions of dollars. They know that. They also know how much they get paid. And the increases in pay, though they are generous, it does not make up for a person's growth at that age. And the city already spoke to these people, and it was overwhelmingly, they overwhelmingly want it, and have expressed that they would stay much longer, this is their career.
And the concern with the goal is to hold expenses in check and increase revenue. And increasing pay, while attractive, is an ongoing operating expense that compounds versus a one-time payment into a retirement plan that we can keep everything else the same and even pay less for the organization operationally towards that retirement plan, but we would be out that one-time payment. But the concern I always have in any of the organizations is adding humans or increasing the pay is an operational expense that eats into whatever the potential surplus is. If you have funds, if you have surpluses and you have funds to make a one-time payment, I think that's a better option than an annual ongoing expense that eats into that potential surplus.
So to close this discussion, I think since it's been a number of weeks, if not maybe even a few months since I think this is worthy of at least another hour of our time informally before we take this to JAA with Todd and Carolina, and let's take another 60 to 90 minutes to kind of figure out. I know there was a few safeguards I think we wanted in place. And if I got to be honest with you, I think I'll just be candid with you. We take Kenny, fully fund him, and then he leaves and is gone next year. And, the optics of how do we, if we're here to retain the high-value people, what's to make sure that they don't take the retirement fund and leave and go work for the Atlanta Aquarium? That's disastrous for us. So if the goal is to reward past behavior or to incentivize that she sticks around for another decade.
Handcuff them.
Yeah.
I
Well,
will say, if we haven't left yet, we're probably.
Yeah. Well, that's the optics. Those are the public's concerns. Those are the optics that we have to deal with. So I'm just talking to you guys. I'm talking to you guys like friends right now. We're talking as friends and colleagues right now, but those are the things that the business world on the outside sees is, everything we do here is wrong to some people. So, but we have to be able to defend and justify
Go
a couple
ahead,
million
Chris, I'm
dollars.
sorry.
If we can come back to this, like I said, because I've been down this issue from an HR perspective for 3 decades, and there's always a debate on what's going to hit you best on retention.
Yeah.
And it's a very simplistic approach going this way, but I think, like I said, there's a lot of other alternatives, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be, when you're talking about salaries or current wages, when you're talking about what you're funding. If, again, you got a surplus year, if we're funding it 6 or 7%, we can take it up to 15.
Well, it's definitely worth.
Maybe options on those that are not participating right now. Clearly, those are the ones would benefit if they're not participating in what we've got set up, because then it's going to be a question, are they going to participate in the program?
I like the idea of a potential, I say handcuffs, but, if we would do something like this, there's an expectation that in order to receive it, there's a time period that needs, an additional time period that needs to be met.
And I don't remember what those details were. But
Yeah.
I think we were
Vesting
very, very
schedule.
close last time we talked about
Vesting
this. I
schedule.
don't know that we need to explore a lot of other options because we were very close, I think, to being in consent on the idea of one of these ideas. I don't remember which one, but we're not far away.
The other-
I think we should talk about it one more time before we.
What would help
Ask-
me is if we look at this again with a proposal, if we could get to the granular level of who's participating, who's not participating, take their names out of it, but give us the numbers and the people so we can actually do some raw counts.
And the other thing to maybe think about that might counter the concern would be, do we really want people to not be able to retire until they're 65? We have an aging management, which it's going to become less productive.
Who's aging?
And
Speak for yourself. 62
And-
this week.
and so, do we really want everybody to quit at once when they're 65?
Oh, of course not, yeah.
And also, do we want the second line of defense to just leave before then?
Yeah.
So the other way of looking at it is we get to the end and we have a mass party and we don't even have the people behind us because they already left. and everybody leaves at once because they have to. And that's
Yeah.
another way of looking at it.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get there, but I think we work very, very close. So I think another hour of our time would be good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, don't we have something else to talk about today? Some other budget? Yeah, we got to move on. Any last questions, comments on whatever meeting we're in? Oklahoma. Last call. All right, very well. The time is 12:02, 12:03.
Item number 2.
Wait, we're not done? Are you kidding? What's going on? Oh, yeah, let's actually do the real work. Recommend to the Jenks Aquarium Authority the fiscal year 2026-2028 biannual budget and its related documents to implement the same. I don't think we need any more discussion, but you are welcome to if you'd like. Otherwise, we can entertain a motion on item 2, unless you want to add amendments or,
Move to approve.
Second.
okay, thank you, gentlemen. We have a proper motion and a second. Let's vote, please.
Brown.
Yes.
Montgomery.
Yes?
Chair Box.
Yes, sir. All right, now it's 12:04. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
How was the next meeting starts at 12, right? Or, well, Kevin's not even here. Pretty sure he was our third one.
Yeah.
Jenks Public Works Authority Budget Committee special meeting today is Wednesday, May 6th at 2026. Mr. Macy, if you please verify our attendance.
Brown?
Here?
Short?
Here.
Chairbox?
Here. Thank you. Time is 12:10. We're underway. Item number 1 is the review of revenues and expenditures and transfers. Any accounts or related issues were relating to the fiscal year 2026, 2028 annual budget. We will start with the highlights just on the inside of page 1. Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
Members
sir.
of Council. So revenue for our budget and previous years, sales and use tax, as of the end of March this year.
We are on the JPWA.
Oh, we're doing JPWA.
Yes, sir.
My bad.
My apologies.
My-
I should have said that a little louder.
All right, let's do this
I
again.
almost corrected you. You said counselors. Trustees.
Revenue, water, sales, and sewer. Based on a review of the current fiscal year expenses and trends over a 3-year average for the past few fiscal years, staff is proposing a 7% increase in our water and 7% increase in our sewer charges. The increase is necessary as we have several major projects we anticipate needing to be done in the near future, while also facing increasing operational costs over time. Some of the major projects include the wastewater treatment plant Phase 2 expansion. Design is estimated to be at least $1 million. Rough timeline right now of fiscal year 29 construction, but that would be $15 million. The 106th Street and Elm lift station in Force Main, additional design services, $750,000. Looking at a couple of years down the road of actual construction for the lift station, estimating $6 million. Force Main estimating $15 million. The Victoria Pond lift station in Force Main, once again, some additional design services of about $300,000. A few years down, anticipated construction, we're looking at a lift station of cost of $3 million and a Force Main cost of $7 million. Now, 7% for the water and sewer.
Yeah, so I think again, with this budget and what you'll see with the city budget and what we saw with the aquarium budget, we have the city, in terms of the general revenue for the JPWA, comes from utility rates, and utility rates are based on the number of customers or households. We have, from 2000 to 2015, we're the fastest growing city in the state of Oklahoma. So we were generating more and more revenue because we had more and more households, more and more customers coming into the city. And even 2015 to 2020, we still grew rapidly. But we've kind of reached probably a plateau in terms of we're running out of easy developable areas. We really only have a couple square miles left of developable land. So we've added all of these households, all of these customers. We're somewhere at, I think, 89, off the top of my head, 8,900 utility customers. But we've had this growth. Our infrastructure has maintained, done well. But with the wastewater treatment plant and our lift stations, we have how many lift stations, Robert? 27 lift stations, moving wastewater up and down and sending it on towards the wastewater treatment plant. We have significant infrastructure investments that we need to make in the next 10 years. We purchase our water from the city of Tulsa, and from something like 2010 to 2017-18, the city of Tulsa recognized their own need to improve their infrastructure, and they increased their utility rates both to residential customers and commercial customers like us. And so when that was happening, we increased we mirrored their increase to the organization onto our customers. And so this year, the city of Tulsa does not have an anticipated increase for commercial customers. They are increasing they're proposed increasing their water and sewer rates to their residential customers. And so we think this is an opportunity to increase our rates and gain that 7% as opposed to when we have increased the majority of the time in the past, it's due to an increase that we're just passing along. And so the increase, the strategy is not necessarily that this is taking care of the operational expense. This is setting us up to be able to fund the tens of millions of dollars worth of improvements that we need to make moving into the future. And our strategy will be more than likely a revenue bond to pay for these, which will be based on, and our interest rate will be based on, A, what we have in the bank, and B, what we're bringing in annually. And so to increase this, if you look at page 2, you see our competitor utilities in Owasso, Sand Springs, Tulsa, Bixby, Bartlesville, Broken Arrow, Glenpool, Sapulpa. And we have our existing rates versus theirs versus our, the second table is our proposed 7% increase. But what you don't see is Tulsa and some of these other communities are increasing their rates in the second table. That is not accounted for. But even so, we still have combined water and sewer rates that are extremely competitive, if not lower than 50% of the rest of the communities. And I'll make what I think is a very important distinction. We are funding our own, this utility is funding its own improvements. Glenpool, for instance, has lower water and sewer rates, but they were subsidized with a $45 million grant from ARPA funds from the state of Oklahoma to build their wastewater treatment plant. So their rates don't reflect the reality of what it costs to operate and maintain their infrastructure. The city of Bixby is another example of, they have had general obligation bonds that have paid for some of their infrastructure that they bill their citizens for utility rates. So although we think that there may be some opportunities to receive outside funding and subsidize the rates that we charge our customers, we are planning, I think, responsibly to be able to self-fund, if need be, the wastewater treatment plant, the lift stations, the force mains. And even so, we still have relatively low water and sewer rates, even with the 7% increase. And these things can fluctuate from year to year. Last fiscal year, even depending on the weather, whether it's dry, we may have more revenue because more people are watering their lawns. If we have a wetter season, our water and sewer revenue can go down. Sewer revenue is tied to water consumption. So all in, and what isn't included here is the total bill that customers receive includes, for instance, stormwater fee, includes refuse collection. Our refuse collection rates, I believe, are at 16, maybe 18, but significantly lower than surrounding communities. We've had, to my knowledge, in the last 8 or 9 years, one increase in our refuse collection rate. And so even with the 7% increase, we are still extremely competitive with our rates as it relates to other communities. And it really is necessary to be able to fund and get a good interest rate on our future capital expenditures that we will need to borrow to fund. Does that make sense?
Yep. questions?
Is the 8817 gallons, is that just an average over the last couple of years? Or
That is what Walter, our Deputy Finance Director, who is in charge of the utility billing system, looks at the average consumption across our, say, 8,900 customers, and that is the average consumption. So we use that in calculating the rate, our rate versus other communities. And every utility has a different rate structure. Most have some flat fee for up to 1,000 gallons, and then it starts changing, whether it's at 2,000 gallons, 5,000 gallons, 7,000 gallons. There's changes to the price structure, and so what Walter and his team did is plug in that 8,800 gallons and calculate the overall water and sewer rate, and then that total rate. And you'll notice our water rates are slightly higher than other communities, but our sewer rates are among the lowest. I mean, even basically in line with Glenpool's. And Glenpool, and that's us funding our capital infrastructure, whereas Glenpool had the benefit of $40+ million coming from the state to fund their capital expenditure. So if there was a true model on what their rate would really need to be, it would be significantly higher than ours.
So this will be the first year we're proposing an increase without a mirror from Tulsa.
We have done it in the past,
Yeah.
but the,
First year that I can recall. It's been a while.
maybe, we've done,
They didn't raise it either.
yeah, we did this, we did something similar last year, but my concern is looking at, when I read the city of, and this is what I do to try to get an understanding of where I think Tulsa's headed, which we're reliant on them for the water. They have something like 70 vacancies within the city, positions that they're eliminating. They're adding police and fire. They are increasing their own customers' water and sewer rates 7% this year. And all this is telling, and they're looking to use vision extension surplus money to fund some operating and capital expenditures this fiscal year. And so when I'm trying to read this, when I'm reading the tea leaves, I'm seeing, okay, they are short money and they're going to try to find it. And I would expect in the next couple of years that if they're not trying to find it through commercial utility rates this year, they are trying to get that from the residential rates. I would expect that we would be seeing something coming. And if we don't take this opportunity, we may not have this opportunity in the next few years.
Apart from general obligation bonds and government grants, the way Glenpool got their money, what other ways do we have as a city to generate, what are the other alternatives we had?
Well, we have existing revenue
Okay,
bonds.
can you explain those briefly?
So we go and the S&P or Moody's will evaluate our rate structure, our expenses, and our cash, and say, how likely is this organization, how much can they afford to borrow? What are they borrowing it for? How likely are they to pay it back? And then we get an interest rate, and basically we go out and issue revenue bonds, which is based on the revenue that we collect. Those are sold generally to one large bank who then may resell them to even retail investors. And it's based on a credit rating and an interest rate. And so we've done that with, I believe, the wastewater treatment plant, phase 1, which was something like $14 million. We also have the ability to borrow from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board and get a lower than average interest rate on that debt for specific infrastructure projects which we have taken out something like $3-4 million of debt to improve our water distribution system and some other items. And so we had a wastewater master plan done 10 years ago. And we have continued, and that had recommendations based on, at the time, our growth patterns, our existing infrastructure, and some of the items that were labeled as priorities were the Victoria Pond Lift Station, the lift station at 106th and Elm, which takes in the majority of customers, even the majority of all the flow within the city goes to that lift station, and then goes through a force main to the east to another force main that goes south to the wastewater treatment plant. What we saw in the 2019 flood is the force main going east from the 106th lift station was built, let's call it 30 years ago, and it was 50 feet off of the Polecat Creek bank. Polecat Creek, over time, it's a windy creek, borderline river. It is eroded and moved. And it moved further and further to the south. And when the flooding in 2019 in May of 2019, the water from the Arkansas River was so high that the Polecat Creek could not empty as it normally does into the Arkansas, and so it just started to rise, and then came back down. And because the creek had moved so much at that location, it moved to the south, our wastewater force main was basically right on the bank of that creek, and we had a failure that we had to mitigate over the course of the summer of 2019, and did a ton of, spent hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, on bank stabilization, securing that force main. And so we know that's a critical issue that has to be addressed. And we have all sorts of, different options, but those options are going to cost millions of dollars. And so I know that's a long answer to this question, but
I think what's important to understand on those, the revenue bonds are probably the most efficient way to go about this, but the revenue bonds are exactly that. It's based on revenue, and the cash flows that you get as a city go into the calculation of the credit rating. And so why this is important is that if we can have more cash flow to service debt, that raises our credit rating and thus reduces our interest costs.
yes, yeah, free cash flow. We had, it might have been 2017, 18, where Tulsa had been raising the rate, we had been increasing our rate, but there wasn't that elasticity where we were getting any of that. It was just if our rate increases, we just pass it on. And our expenses, operating expenses at the time, naturally continued to creep up. And we were at a point where the revenue and expenditures were almost, we didn't have free cash flow to be able to service debt. And so over time, we've reduced expenses, and over the course of the last 7 years, increased our rate slightly when we haven't had a rate increase from Tulsa, to get us to a point where we could issue those revenue bonds. But we know, and as Michael and Mr. Carr have pointed out on this memo, there's $20 million at least of capital improvements we need to make. We did have the wastewater, we've done completed phase 1, correct, of the wastewater treatment plant. There's 2 more phases, and at the time this was presented, let's call it 5 years ago, it's a total capital expenditure of something like $30 to $40 million, and we're $13 million into it. So.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. I'm certainly about the 7% increase unless you do. No?
Real quick, do we still have the commercial relationship with Cogentrix? Or where they buy water from us. Do we still have that?
Yes. So I think it was, and I could be wrong, Green Country Energy, which was owned by a Japanese venture capital firm. AEP PSO purchased that power plant and it had to be approved by the Corporation Commission, and that was completed last summer. And that took, I think, at least a year for AEP PSO to get through that process. And there is a 25% markup on the water that is sold to the power plant. So, we purchase the water from Tulsa, they purchase the water from us at a 25% markup. That 25% markup goes into, it's a separate line item on our revenue. It's industrial water sales. 25% goes into, the 25% markup goes into Fund 59, which is our insurance and risk management account. As we discussed at actually our last budget committee meeting, the purpose of the original markup and the account was, one, to backstop the aquarium's debt, and two, the fund or the account is for employee benefits secondarily. We have budgeted since 2021 $500,000 in transfers each year, each fiscal year, to the aquarium to help them service their debt. So in 21, 22, 23, 24, and now 25 and 26, we budgeted that amount. The JAA has not needed that amount because they have increased their revenue relative to expenses. So we have not had to expend those funds. But yes, again, long answer, we still have that relationship, and that agreement moves with the ownership of the power plant. So
PSO.
Is there an expiry on that?
no.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of following the discussion on the revenue assumptions on projects that coming up, I came up with a little over 48 million, looks like through fiscal year 30. And we're projecting at least for, let's see, 24, 25, what, 2.4 million on net between revenue expenses. What is our, I guess, what's our gap between funding these out of operating expenses, operating revenue, versus trying to cover these costs by revenue bonds? I don't know if you're following me on that. I guess, let me rephrase my question. Are we going to need to go to revenue bonds for all of these projects?
The majority.
Majority?
The majority, yes.
And then can we get and I know we don't have it today, but can we get a table of the outstanding revenue bonds? I see our debt servicing was, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we can get that. And it's a part of our, yes.
And I'm not opposed to what you're recommending here on an increase. I guess one of the challenges that I see that we have is because we are buying our water from the city of Tulsa, we are then subject to how they manage their money and what they pass through to us and what we have to do in order to keep current with that. I would assume Glenpool is probably getting their water from Tulsa.
Correct.
Who else on here is getting their water from?
Owasso.
Owasso, okay.
Sand Springs and Sapulpa have their own joint plant. Broken Arrow, and this is where Broken Arrow generates their own water. They created a new plant on Bird Creek, maybe. One of these that, I don't know if it was Bird or I can't remember the name of the creek.
Was it
Verdigris,
that makes sense,
and it
yeah.
was a disaster. And so there's benefits to generating your own water, and then there's its own expenses and operational challenges doing that. And
Yeah, so we are don't mean to sound adversarial, but we're somewhat held hostage to how the city of Tulsa handles their finances and what we've got to do, so I recognize we have to do that. A concern that I have too, and again, not opposed to 7% that's recommended. Current inflation rate is, the Fed's projecting between 2.4 and 3.3%, and we all know that when we increase things on an inflationary factor, they never come back down. So as we're raising the rates, we're going to be left with those rates to perpetuity. Just one thought, and it's just kind of a wild thing here, and hate to say it because I'm probably the oldest one on council, thinking along the lines of the president and some of our gubernatorial candidates, have we considered locking or freezing rates for seniors on fixed income?
Yeah, and we have done that. We did that something like 4 years ago,
So I should be on that right now.
potentially.
So it's already in place,
There is a program.
but it's something that we have to apply for?
I believe so. I don't have the details on that, but we can certainly get that to you.
Yeah, I was just curious about that, because again, those that are on fixed income are not keeping up with inflation. And as we increase these things, we're creating inflation. But
All right, last
Very
call
good,
on
thank
water,
you.
gentlemen. Let's move on to expenses, personnel expense. Page 2.
Sorry, we budgeted a 6% base pay increase for this year. Once again, management's desire to continue the same percentage as we've done the last 2 years to make the city and the authority competitive with surrounding municipalities to find and retain excellent and exceptional employees.
And we're up against, when we look at our public works employees, which are essentially, I mean, they are utility employees, and so we're competing with publicly traded gas and electric companies, other municipalities with utilities. For instance, the
This
city.
doesn't need to be sold. I have a question. For the sake of time, how many vacancies do you have on your staff, public work? 3? Does that worry you, or is it, how long does it take to fill these?
The reason why I say that is I attended a conference, JPWA conference yesterday.
You need to join us.
Could you please come to the microphone?
I don't think we're going to get.
Dun-dun-dun. Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I attended a conference AP down on 71st yesterday at the Marriott. And fortunately, I had a chance to listen to some engineers and directors from Tulsa, from Owasso, and from Broken Arrow. And they're all having pain as we do with hiring, and they're actually a lot shorter than we are with personnel. And it's hard to get them. And I heard, I don't know if it was Dwayne or Broken Arrow, and they said something about poaching, and I said, oh, hold it. You're on poaching hours. You know, it was just a joke. So, but they're having problems throughout the region on hiring qualified personnel to fill those positions, and we're not the only one. So they're hard to fill. A lot of it with us, the primary reason why they depart is pay.
Okay.
And almost the only reason, some of them, they end up being idiots and they need to go. But as far as their reason for leaving is, I got to take care of my family, on and on and on, and I need to get better pay. But as we know, the grass is not always greener on the other side, and a lot of them come back. But every municipality in this region is having hiring issues with utilities, so.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Bet.
Appreciate it. Any questions from you two on the 6% increase?
Just one other question. When was the last time HR performed a salary and benefit survey analysis?
For who specifically? For Public Works? It was just short.
And we haven't done that in that I can recall. I mean, we receive, OML has a more informal salary survey, and I know that's generally something that municipalities or organizations go and pay an outside firm to complete. What we've done is just informal, looking at what other communities pay, say, comparable public works employees. So, but we don't have anything official. We have not done that.
Okay. If it ever gets closer from a want to a need, let us know and budget for it. Maintenance operations, M&O.
Overall, the operating fund has seen an increase of about just over $500,000 over last year's budget. Most of the increases are related to utilities, contractual and professional services, and some of the different programs. So maintenance operation budget from this year to last year is increasing by 3.8%. Once again, going back to, like Chris had said before, trying to hold the line on some things. Capital outlay decreases this year about $200,000. Most of it is the less projects this year that they asked or requested for budget.
Well, and I think there are items that, whether it's the JPWA or the city, there are ongoing projects that we did not specifically include in this budget because we don't necessarily have the certainty on the numbers, and we would rather come back with a supplemental appropriation. And some of those things are related to the timing on the seniors and their space, whatever space that may be. City halls, which related city hall support staff, are we here? Are we moving to another location that needs to be leased before we make a final decision on a permanent office space? We have the downtown master plan that will be presented to the Planning Commission tomorrow night and presented to council either at the end of May or early June. There are going to be significant capital requests for investments in the downtown area. That also includes the library lot or West Gateway, that 4.2 acres. There's an interest in participating to some degree in the development of that property. We have the vision extension, our existing vision extension program and the low water dam, the unknowns related to the city of Jenks total investment in that project. We have Fire Station 1 that is now complete, but we have a 5-year note on that that we need to figure out how we will pay that down, pay it back, pay it down. We have a lot of options, but we have not made a decision on that. Our fleet, I know we have gone through different versions of strategy related to our existing fleet and 97 vehicles, our replacement program, should we continue to purchase these outright? Should we instead lease them? So there are items that have even come before council and we've discussed that are not specifically outlined in the budget because we thought it would be better to come back with certainty on the numbers and get a supplemental appropriation on these items. So while the capital expense decreases $200,000, that's not to say that we anticipate that being the end-all, be-all this fiscal year. We anticipate there will be additional supplemental appropriations.
Mr. Trout, one thing I visited with Mr. Parsons on, I noticed that we are getting a striper, an airline striper, and you've got some numbers budgeted for striping maintenance. I was very pleased to see that. I think the look that the city has, it makes a difference from just an aesthetics, but most importantly, we've got so many more or less east-west roads that aren't street lit. And so when those stripes start to wear down like they have, to me, it's really more of a public safety issue than an aesthetics, but I think we accomplishes both. So I'd be very strongly in support of, taking the budget, getting a regular program to where we've got really well-striped streets in the city, and get on a really regular maintenance. My understanding is if we own the machine, then we can do it on our timeline, when the weather's nice, we don't have to be beholden to a third party. So I appreciate you guys putting that in there.
Any other questions or comments on the capital project list?
None for me, no. So we're on the transfers.
Okay. Transfers is, for this coming year will increase to 16.97 from 16.25, about 4.47%. Most of that increase is because the transfers that we have going out of Fund 50 are, most of it is sales tax and use tax back to the city, and the ones in capital. And when we get to the city part, increasing sales tax, now we have a full year of the outlet mall and everything, and try and project that and all those intricacies. The budget goes up for that, and so that's where most of the increase is coming from, with sales tax and use tax.
All right. Trustees, any questions on the table on page 2, the blue one? Anything there we want to talk about? Okay, if not, we can move over. Revenues, any questions on the table itself? Go ahead and don't wait on me, just go ahead and light up and fire away. For sake of time, we can just move right through it. And Michael, if there's anything here that you want to highlight, because there's significant variance from the prior year, you can do so. Otherwise,
But most of it is like we've already discussed,
yeah.
water and sewer increase, and then transfers related coming. And on the revenue side, because sales tax and use tax comes in and then goes back out, so the revenue side, that's of course higher as well.
Gotcha. All right, we can move on to expenses. Trustees, any questions on the expense table, which is, I believe, on literally the third page, front side?
Mr. Strout, could you give some insight on the economic development line 242, kind of what we're envisioning on the expenditure side, a little more detail?
Yes. That, we have some positions that have historically been funded out of that account that are more support positions, like, say, communications, assistant city manager, other positions that aren't straight up only economic development focused. And then we also have the contract with the Chamber of Commerce that is within that account. So the contractual services and professional services is largely that amount of money. And we also have communications expense budgeted in there related to outside entities for marketing and communications.
So that would include Retrospect, the Gov app, whatever that third-party vendor that, we're looking at a budget of 822, 807 previously. I mean, it's from the mid-500s. What's the biggest, what represents the biggest part of that jump? Other than some of the is that where Katie's funded out of that?
I don't know that she is anymore, but yes, the contractual services with the chamber and with, say, Retrospec or Town Hall PR, others.
Okay, all of those things. Yeah. You satisfied?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other of these?
That is a big jump, 27, 28.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, like you said, most all contractual professional services. Looking at what we're spending there.
All right.
Outside attorneys that we're using, audit firms?
No, it would be,
no.
like I said, the chamber,
Just the same.
communications, marketing.
Multimedia.
Yeah, multimedia
Anything
marketing.
that's probably public facing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, would that include like the America 250 banners and all the flags, or is that coming from a separate line item? Because that's obviously.
I don't know about that.
We're not going to have that expense next year, obviously. Okay. Have we, you know, as you guys go through and you start finding these funds that you could argue, make an argument don't really need to exist anymore, then of course we would be in favor of, you know, if there's one, if you have a Fund 242 and it just for whatever, it just funds one employee. You guys have a lot of these little accounts, and a lot of these little funds. At some point, you guys should do a 10-year spring cleaning and try to consolidate some of these.
And
Maybe
I
easier.
would agree, because this format is what I inherited 11 years ago, and we've made changes, but by and large, some of these things have come out of an account, and they just continue to. So I
Yeah.
agree with your statement.
Yeah, maybe every 5 to 10 years, take a look at these and just literally ask yourself, what is the balance? Where's the money coming from? Where does it go? Why does it need to be there? 211 to 590, some of these are very obvious, but I always put myself in the position of the public. What would the public ask, and how do we answer the question on economic development? That's actually a good question that Kevin brought up, because it sort of seems like a pretty big number. All right, for the two trustees with me, any other questions on the expenses table?
None here.
Okay, if not, we can move on. Don't forget the footnotes are also on the back side of that page. Revenues and expense were on the second to last physical page. I think it's in pink and green. Any questions, concerns about any of these items? Or highlights that you want to share, Michael? Anything in particular that really got you guys talking at the water cooler? Any water cooler discussion? Insurance?
Most of these are some special funds, and usually if they have anything budgeted in there, it's usually some specific things, but the ones in capital fund, a big chunk of that does go out is related to transfers to some of the other funds, as you can see there, the police capital and the fire capital and the debt service.
Yeah. Okay.
There is a few capital items, and they're related to, back on the blue sheet, you'll see Fund 53. So some of our other capital, sometimes is it Fund 50 JPWA or Fund 53 the capital, and so it's a little bit more capital budgeted over here than, of course, on JPWA. I
Okay.
think, like Chris said too, there's some things that we looked at that are, hey, we're not too sure, let's wait until, we need to actually do it, or we know a specific thing about it to come back and have a more concrete number for you.
Okay.
So essentially, this list is pretty much all restricted accounting then?
Yes, they have all these funds have certain restrictions on what you can use the funds for or whatever. Also, if you have any comments about, how can this look better for next year?
Well,
Do we need an official recommendation motion?
not yet. Any other questions? Well, that'll be item number 2, but any other questions from either of you on any of the footnotes or the last pages for Public Works?
No.
Okay. All right. Yes, sir. Number 2, recommend to the Jenks Public Works Authority the fiscal year 2026 to 2028 biennial budget and its related documents.
Recommend the Jenks Public Works Authority budget as presented.
Second?
Thank you both. We have a proper motion and a second. Item 2, let's vote, please.
Brown? Yes. Short?
Yes.
Gearbox?
Yes. Last call. All right, if not, time is 12:55 PM. We are adjourned. Anybody need a break?
Push through.
All right, good, Kevin. Keep going. Okay. All right, we will call to order at 12:55 Wednesday, May 6th, the Jenks City Council Budget Committee special meeting. Mr. Macy?
Brown, still here? Short?
Here.
Mayor Box?
Yes, thank you. Here. Item number 1 is the review of the revenues and expenditures and transfers and any accounts related to pertaining to the fiscal year 2026 to 2028 biennial budget. We'll start with the revenue assumptions on the inside of page 1. Mr. Sanchez.
As of the end of March of this year, the city has collected $14.116 million, or roughly 79% of our budgeted sales and use tax revenue of $17.7 million. For the current fiscal year to date, the average monthly receipt is almost $1.56 million. Conservative estimates for the last 3 months, which is more conservative than what we've averaged of $3.9 million, would, if we meet even that conservative estimate, we will end the fiscal year with just over $18 million in revenue, which is about $300,000 above the budget we have, and that's with a conservative estimate. For this year, the budget is for the upcoming fiscal year 27, the sales and use tax budget is almost 88 million. That represents an increase of 1.15 million, and I say it's an increase of 7% over the previous year's fiscal budget. But I do want to point out, that's not saying, oh, sales tax is increasing 7% per se. This past fiscal year was the first fiscal year that we had a full year of the mall. And so part of the budget for the current fiscal year was trying to figure out what's a full year we anticipate that to be. I think also there might be is there a fall off in the mall after the newness of opening during this year? So far for this year, for the sales tax, we've trended all year for 15 million in sales tax. In fact, actually earlier in the year, with fluctuation, it was even 15 and a half at one point. Through March, we're trending towards 15 million. Therefore, when you look at the actual budget number I used for sales tax is only 15.2, mostly because that's less than 1.5%. Most of that is the mall has been performing still as well as it has last year. Sales taxes over the last several years been pretty flat. It's been up a little this year, but I also think new businesses opening, I think can account for that 200,000 increase as a conservative estimate. Use tax for the last several years has actually averaged 11%, but there's an outlier to that. It's been more close to 4 or 5%. This year it's about 2% higher, which is, from a use tax perspective, budgeted a 2% use tax increase for next year. And so altogether with that, compared to last year's budget, gets us to the 7% compared to last year's budget.
Okay.
So, any questions on
Questions,
sales
comments?
tax? Sales tax is a big.
No, this is all good news. I mean, it's good news that we're growing, and we see that in the sales and use tax, and I don't believe other municipalities are enjoying the same benefits. So that's good. And we're just now tapping into the halo effect of the outlet mall. We still haven't appreciated all of that yet, and that's going to take some time. But I think as we start developing out the land around it and bringing additional visitors into the city, I think that should bode well for us long-term.
Great. Franchise fees.
Increased franchise fees revenue budget is based on the current fiscal performance. The estimate for this year is about 1.43 million, and that's about in line with about the 3-year average. So, increasing it just a shade to kind of match what the current and the 3-year has been is what the estimate was for there.
Okay. Very well.
And then also, like we discussed with JPWA, increase in transfer related to, obviously projecting more sales tax than we budgeted last year. So therefore, the transfer related to that is increased over last year.
Okay. Personal expense, same 6%?
Yes, as you've heard a couple times already, same 6%. Want to continue to remain competitive and attract and retain employees. The total personnel expense is going to increase at 10.58 million from 10.08 million roughly, which is about a $500,000 increase or about 5% increase.
Okay.
Maintenance operations expenses are pretty much flat. I mean, very minimal increase over the last year. Transfers are going to increase, but once again, that's related to increase in sales tax over previous year.
Okay.
And we do have a master fee schedule, but the only change in it is, as we discussed in the JPWA meeting, the water and sewer rates for the year.
All right.
Real quick, on the personal expense, we're increasing pay 6%, but overall payroll expenses only at an increased rate of 5%?
Yes, so part of the personnel expense itself is not just salaries, it's some of the other benefits that aren't salary-based, but then also what we include in personnel expense is also, there's some line items for membership dues, training in schools, and car allowance.
Okay.
And so some different departments have amounts in there, but, those are more static based off of, not based off of increase in salary, so.
Okay. Are we looking at increasing staff headcount, or is this a static headcount?
Static.
Static, okay.
So, much like JPWA and JAA, for the past decade with the city's budget, we have financed to make the budget balanced. We have budgeted on paper fund balance to balance the budget. Now, we control expenses to the extent that we have not needed to use the fund balance, but this budget, and we felt comfortable doing that, anticipating the mall literally for the last decade. And so we were able to add police officers, firefighters, without the mall there yet. And then once we knew the mall was opening on August 15th of '24, we added police officers and firefighters. And currently, we have 6 firefighters that are being funded through a SAFER grant that expires in 2027. So there's about $500,000-ish to $600,000 expense, liability essentially. I mean, we have these employees that we're paying, but we're receiving their pay through this SAFER grant. That expires, and we'll have to come up with that $500,000 or $600,000. And so, again, with this budget, we're just looking to hold steady. We have the mall, it's open, we have additional revenue. Some of that revenue is dedicated to paying them back for their infrastructure investments, but we are not adding headcount to this organization. We have changed some of the structure of the fire department, adding additional drivers. Because we added 6 firefighters, we have more firefighters, but we didn't increase the number of driver positions. And similarly, once you're a driver for a year, you can test to become a lieutenant, and a lieutenant can act as a captain. So if a captain's gone, that person can fill in. So as a part of the contract that will come before the city council to be approved, we're suggesting increasing the number of drivers by, I believe, 3, and in turn would allow those drivers, after in the position a year, to test to be a lieutenant, but we're not suggesting adding any actual additional employees at this time. And that's something that we'll be evaluating throughout this year when we come back to this body next year at this time.
That's really good. I just want to kind of reiterate, I think what we've discussed in the past, I think the council is very supportive, is as the management sees a need for, as we grow, the city gets more complex, the opportunities get more complex, that you have our support to grow the necessary personnel in order to maintain that complexity. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions on the capital outlay sheet, the green one? Okay. If not, can move on to revenues table. Questions, concerns, highlights here. Go ahead and just fire away if you have a comment or a question. If not, Michael, anything here you want to highlight that was what we'll call the water cooler talk? Anything here unusual? Doesn't seem to be anything really out of whack.
No, most of the little footnotes related to revenue were more looking at,
Yeah.
like I said before, looking at past historical and current year and seeing how we align, like,
So, speaking, I see the community room rental. I want to keep this very short because there is a possibility we may not have a community room to rent in the near future. Is that, we don't charge people a whole lot for that, do we? Apparently, we don't. Okay. Is it always paid for? Are there is there any entity getting in there that is not paying, or is it always paid in some way? Do we know? It's okay if we don't know. I never realized it was such a small number.
yeah,
I
I'm
think
not
it's
sure.
generally a deposit.
Okay, all right. Okay. Any other questions, gentlemen, on revenues? Okay, not, we'll, questions on expenses?
Just a general question.
Yes.
When you're working on your personnel budget, which is always going to be a larger percentage of the total budget, are you working off of a zero base, or are you using static numbers of just totals?
I wouldn't build in personnel. It's looking at, well, part of it is we have a personnel matrix that they've been running each year, and so
So you're going
it's
zero
building
base?
off of that. yeah.
No.
Zero base in?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, all right. No questions on expenses? Last call. Anyone? Questions, comments? Expenses, revenues, capital outlays, anything?
Make a motion to recommend the city council budget as presented.
Second?
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We have a proper motion and a second on item number 2. Macy?
Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes, thank you. We will say current meeting adjourned at 1:10 PM. And we will move on to the Jenks Economic Development Authority Budget Committee meeting, 1:10 PM. Call to order, Mr. Macy.
Brown?
Second, right here.
Short? Here. Chair Box?
Here, item number 1 is the review of revenues, expenditures, and transfers and any accounts related to items pertaining to the 2026-2020 biennial budget. Starting on the inside, highlights from JEDA, Mr. Sanchez.
Once again. Usually
No
revenue.
revenue? What's going on here? We didn't sell any lemonade this year? Okay, all right, good deal. Go ahead, sir. Expenses.
I'm sorry. Revenue, usually from fund balance and interest. Expense budget this year is $200,000. It's used to fund developmental incentives, like the big grants and stuff. And as of April of this year, here's some of the ones that we have funded for this year. Business improvement grant for Tedford, for Cedar and Lily, City Hall, and the Lodge, which was all in one area there. And also a commercial kitchen grant for a Pure Kitchen. I think we'll also have a commercial kitchen grant before the end of the year for the Lorne, the new bakery,
Okay.
so.
I have a question for you on the table,
Yes.
page 3 of 3. Tracking the math here, and as I move down in these
Oh.
columns, but what does the check figures, that you have the numbers in parentheses that say check figures, what does that mean to us as what Excel
Oh.
formula is that? What is that?
That was a formula they had from a previous version that I did not take out.
So it's not adding any value?
They were checking, well, no, the check figure there is actually the 85, I was looking at the far end of what it was doing. The bottom one is, that's basically the difference between revenues and expenses.
So that's expenses minus revenues
Yes.
is, okay, okay, that kind of looks
Yes.
right. And then 548 minus 189, okay, now I see.
Yes.
And I would anticipate that even, we can recommend this budget, but there will be changes throughout the year as it relates to the incentives, the new incentives that were approved, any other incentives, and then again, with the downtown master plan set to be presented to the planning commission and then to the city council, I fully anticipate that there will be expenditures, capital investment related to downtown. We don't have it quite figured out exactly the funding source. We have numerous options for funding sources. JEDA could be a funding source, and so I anticipate that this budget, there will be supplemental appropriations throughout the year as well.
Why would JEDA be a funding source for? I think it would be.
We have cash on the balance sheet.
Yes.
Yeah, if,
You agree?
Yeah, we have cash to
Well, not a lot.
well, we do have new incentives that,
Apart from incentives, though, so my question was, is there anything we would be spending money on that's not related to growing the business community, or that's not considered an incentive? I thought you were suggesting there'd be capital expenditures that we could potentially budget from out of JEDA.
I think
which is
that
not
there's a
really JEDA's
potential.
mission, But maybe I misunderstood.
Well, I think if the view is, if the expenditure is going to have some sort of return, economic return for the city at large, that's what the purpose of JEDA is. And we, right now, have done direct reimbursement for that, creating the economic growth with new businesses. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to utilize JEDA funds for other things that we think has a direct impact on the economic output of the city as a whole.
Okay.
So, and that's why I bring up downtown is whether it's in some way the development of the library lot, West Gateway, whether it's improvements to Main Street or things that we think have a direct economic impact. I think that, in my opinion, I'd be open to recommending using some of the funding to make those things happen.
What's the approximate balance of JEDA right now?
3.2 million?
Yes.
Just over 3.
The economic development grant from the state, the matching, anything we do with that, is that going to come in the city, or could we run that through JEDA?
It could be run through JEDA, the city, JPWA.
Could go on
To my, I mean, off the top of my head, yeah.
any one of the three. Have we, to your knowledge, have we applied for any reimbursements under that program yet?
The program opens in September of every year.
September.
And we were just certified as a Main Street city, I believe, this winter. And so you have to be certified before you can apply, but I fully anticipate we will be applying for those funds once it opens up in September.
Good question. Anything else, Mr. Short?
Just, feedback from citizens that I've visited with recently. They love what's happening downtown. And I think JEDA's been a big part of that. So really, really pleased with how we've used JEDA. I'd like to use it more. We've got quite a bit of funding and we've got the horsepower to do it. So To Chris's point, I think we can be broad-based in our thought process in terms of how to use those funds to generate a higher return. I think we've used them very effectively, and I think everyone has appreciated what we've done, so.
Agreed. Okay. Any other questions, comments on item 1? If not, we can move on to item 2.
Make a motion that we approve the Jenks Economic Development Authority budget as proposed.
Second.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Proper motion, second. Let's vote, please. Item 2.
Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Chairbox?
Yes. Time is 1:15 PM. We are adjourned. Thank you guys very much.
Five-year capital projects plan. I didn't think we needed to get into the whole thing. But just, you have some version of this.